No matter which social media platform you're on, whether it's Facebook, Discord, or Reddit, you're always going to get two very common questions that a lot of new players or even mid-game players will ask. The first question is that you'll get a scenario where a player sends a screenshot of all the operators that they have, and then they'll just caption the picture, who should I build? Then the second question is that you'll get players maybe taking a picture of something, and then they'll put two operators side by side. So for example, they'll put like a Jessica and a Cruz. Then they'll ask, who should I build first? Should I build my Jessica first or my Cruz first? Should I build Blaze first or Tawns first? When this scenario happens, there's also three common type of answers that people will give. The first one is people will say, just go and build all your 3 stars. And there's a bit of a problem with telling players to build all the 3 stars, because what if they don't want to do that? What if these players have very strong 6 stars in their account, very strong 5 stars, and they could be actually better options in their account? Then the second type of answers that players might then say, build your highest rarity operators, go ahead and build those 6 stars, 5 stars that you have, because they are like the strongest units to own. Which is also a trouble, because when you recommend the 3-star operators, it makes sense. They are low investment, you put way less LMD and EXP into them, and then you get like a sort of good power to start the game off. Whereas if you talk about the higher rarities, you need a little bit more investment before you squeeze out the fullest potential in them. Then the third type of advice, which sounds like the right advice, is when players choose specifically which operators these guys should build. So they'll go about handpicking like, oh, you should build Lapland, you should build Spectre, you should build your Tawns, your Surtur, and then you should build Cruz. To go and handpick for the players. And that's also not an advice that I kind of like, because then you end up restricting the players as to how they are supposed to play the game. Sometimes players just want to adventure, They have a bunch of operators that they like already, but they're not very certain or confident as to whether these are good operators to have at the start. So that is the reason why we've got today's video. This video is called How to Build Your First Squad in Arknights, and it starts off the entire series of Arkpedia. So Arkpedia is a wording to merge the word Arknights and Encyclopedia together. This new guide series of mine is going to take you guys through Arknights from the start of being a new player to some mid-game advice, and then later on to some late-game ones. And there's going to be a lot of episodes, a lot of great tips to help every single one who's watching right now. So probably for the first 10 episodes, you're going to see a lot of new player-oriented stuff. Then later on, we'll start to go into the mid-game territory. And then after that, it's going to be the advanced stuff. Like if let's say you're a level 120 player, how should you enjoy the game even better? So I hope you guys are excited for what's to come, but let's get started for today's topic. Now, answering the question of how to build your first squad in Arknights, it's not really about picking certain specific operators to have in your squad, and it's definitely not the choice of saying choose the first 12 operators you have in your account, building them all up, and then expecting them to take you through the entire game. In fact, in Arknights, you'll be swapping out your operators a lot, because in every single level, there are different situations that calls for different operators. So you do want to have a variety of units that you can play. Right now in the game, there's more than 200 operators that you can choose from, which becomes difficult to decide which ones are better to start off with. Now, I'm not one to say that you're supposed to pick the strongest units, you're supposed to pick like the lowest investment ones. It's not like that. If you play the game with the thought that, only the strongest one matter, I feel like you'll end up not liking Arknights as much. Because this gacha game is very unique. It's not like the other gacha games where you play. This is not about min-maxing. You should play the game in the way that you want to play. There's so many great operators to choose from. If you like their looks, you like their skills, don't feel pressured. You should be building them just as you want, because to me, this game is more like a sandboxy game. It's more like an adventure game where you can choose whatever that you want. So long as you understand your operators, they are going to help you back. It's kind of like when you play an FPS game or a mobile game. You have an operator that you choose, and sometimes people will say, oh, certain operators are not as good and whatsoever. But if you see ranked players, competitive players in those games, you can see that there are certain players who can play a certain, say, less popular character well. And that's just because they understand what these characters do. Same thing in Arknights. Every character is gonna be amazing as long as you learn what they do. Those characters where people call it the meta, yes, they are insanely strong, but the biggest reason why they are so good is also that they are easy to understand. So that becomes a thing where, oh, if players were to pick it up, then they're going to be just fine. But if you're talking about other operators, they could pose a bit of a challenge. But the challenge is worth it. Once you get to know the operators that you love so much and you know why they work, they will do amazing. So I'm not one who's going to tell you, okay, these first 25 operators is going to be the best ones for you. Specific operators is not the answer. Rather, if you are a new player at the game, you need specific branches. Branches are the way that you sort operators. If you go into your account right now, you click on an operator and you go to the bottom right side, you're going to see that there's the word branch. And there's so many different within this game. In fact, I think there's more than 50 branches right now to sort out all these operators, that is. So, because this is such a nice categorization, there are certain branches that if you were to build them first at the start of the game, they are going to help you out so much more. What this video is going to do is that it will introduce to you 19 branches that are amazing for a beginning player. Now, these branches are the most impactful at the start, but it doesn't mean that they are the strongest branches. It's not like that. These branches are what I call the foundation branches. When you're climbing a mountain, you don't start from anywhere in the middle. You're supposed to climb from the bottom all the way to the top. And that's the same idea for these foundation branches. They help you to build the base of your game. These are the units that if you build them early on, they're going to help you so much at the start. They will still carry you in the middle part of your game journey. You're still going to be loving them even later on in the game. Once you get your foundation set, is fully fortified, then you are ready to explore into other units of the game. And by that time, it's not even about who to build anymore. You've already got the best start to begin with. Any other operator that you build from this foundation is just simply going to support your squads or the other operators you build even more. They're going to add on, they're going to feed you even more interesting combination of operators to play with. One thing I must clarify is that most impactful branch at the start of the game is not the strongest branch. No branch is stronger than another branch. Branches are meant to support each other, they're meant to complement each other. When you start to learn how to mix and match them, that is how you create the strongest combo of units that you can ever wish to have. So what I'm going to introduce over here is 19 great starting branches. For each branch, I'm going to mention whether you're supposed to have one operator or two operators built to help you out with the start of your game. Each branch has a lot of operators. Some of them only have 4, some of them can have even like more than 15. Then you might just ask me, who am I supposed to choose? That choice is on you. Don't worry about which operator you choose. All I need you to do is to build the operators within that branch. So it's really a free-for-all. If you're a person who like the male operators, you like, I don't know, operators who are super tall, you like operators who have certain bigger assets, then yeah, do your thing, because you don't need like the most meta of things. All you need is to get the great starting operators. So feel free to choose anyone that you want. But I know there are some people who's going to say, Cookie, I don't care about like the looks of the operators. I want the strongest of units, the ones that's going to make my account like so up there. If that's what you want, like you want me to recommend operators, that's also what I'm going to do in this video. So you're going to see all the units categorized in this manner. There are 3 colors to the operators. The first color is the golden color or the yellow color. So these ones are what I personally recommend. There are units that are going to help you so much from the start of the game, and if you were to build them, all the way up to Elite 1 or even Elite 2, you are going to be so happy to own this operator throughout the game because they have a huge power ceiling. That's for the first border. The second one is no border, so I didn't even add any colors. These are what I consider as the decent operators. They definitely function well in the branch, but of course I would say that there are some points that makes them a little bit tougher to recommend because maybe they're a little harder to learn for you to fully realize how they actually work, or their power ceiling may not be as good, or I have this innate fear that if you were to build them, you neglect them maybe say 1 year into your game where you don't choose to use them anymore because I don't know, you don't like them. So that's why I will categorize certain operators later in the OK category. And there are going to be quite a few that you'll see with a red border. So these are the ones that I don't recommend. The reason why I don't recommend them is that I don't think they help out a lot within the start of the game. You will probably be much happier if you build the operators within the OK or my recommended category. Because for the ones that are red, yeah, they might help you out early at the front, but later on you might end up not using them at all because you just don't seem to like how they work. My personal say is that they don't add a lot of fun within the game per se. I don't think their skills are super interesting. I don't think they're extremely powerful as well. So that's why I don't recommend these operators that you'll see in a bit. So in any case, I hope you are excited for what's to come. We are going to get started to introduce all of the branches. But before that, here's a little promotion from my side. So I've written a LDPlayer article of about 20 great starting operators. So this one is not about branches this time. This one is specific operators that I wrote about. These are the ones that I would say that if a new player were to own them, I would say that they can really help out so far in the game. So if you want to read that article, you don't like this whole branches topic, yeah, you can go ahead and read that after you've watched this video. The link to it is in the description of my video. And hey, if you're looking for a way to play Arknights on your PC, LDPlayer is a great emulator that you can choose. The affiliate link to download this emulator is also in the description of my video. So anyways, thanks to LDPlayer for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get to the real juicy bits. In every stage that you play, you're gonna need deployment points to place down your operators. And hence, the first class that we're gonna talk about is the Vanguards. There are 4 branches in this class, and you're only gonna need 3 of them. Let's first start off with the Pioneers. Pioneers are probably one of the first branches that you'll encounter when you start the game. This branch has 2 distinctive features. The first one is that when their skills are activated, they will generate DP for your playthrough. The second feature is that compared to the other Vanguards, they're able to block 2 enemies in one go. This makes them very powerful operators to be the first ones that you place down in the map, generating DP for you and blocking all those smaller mobs that usually first start the stage. With how much of a staple this branch is, I will strongly advise that you build 1 Pioneer Vanguard within your account. It is up to you as to who you want this to be. After the Pioneers, we've got the Chargers. These are what we call DP on kill Vanguards. The difference between the Chargers and the Pioneers is that the Chargers can only block 1 enemy at a time, but you'll see that they have a much higher attack than the Pioneers. Whenever you retreat your Chargers, it will refund the original deployment cost of these operators, making it convenient to deploy more units into the stage. These Chargers can also gain 1 DP for every enemy that they kill, making them great operators to also start the stage with. They are definitely very good operators to first learn when you begin the game, so I will ask that you choose just 1 Charger to build in your account. The final of the Vanguards is the Standard Bearers. This is probably the most popular branch that you hear from many players when they are advising the new players. The other naming for Standard Bearers is Flag Bearers, and the reason for their popularity is that they are able to generate a huge amount of DP into the stage. With each click of their skill, you can see them blurt out as much as 14 to even 20 DP in one go, which becomes a huge no-brainer pick when deciding who to build in your account. At the start of the game, you're only gonna need 1 Flag Bearer, but I will strongly advise that every single player build themselves a Myrtle. Once you've seen a Myrtle in your account, go ahead, build her up, and also make her your first Elite 2. Having an Elite 2 in your account will allow you to borrow support units from your friend, and Myrtle is a great operator to have in your squad because you're almost going to bring her in every single one of your playthroughs. You can still choose the other Standard Bearers, but I think Myrtle will be the easiest pick here, so I'll let the choice be on you. We've got the deployment points that we need, but we've got enemies to kill. This is the perfect time to introduce the damage dealers. Let's start with the melee damage dealing ones. They are the Guards. There are many branches in this one, but you'll just have to pay attention to 4 of them. I'll first begin with the Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts are surely a very cool sounding name, but the usual way that the community like to call this branch is the Duelist Guards. Basically, these are guards that can only block 1 enemy at a time, and they can trigger a sort of one-on-one fight with any enemies that they're blocking. These guards have very high attack, but you'll notice that the trade-off is that they have very low defense. If you see the border coloring of a lot of the operators here, I didn't really put any of them at yellow or red because a lot of the Dreadnoughts are actually just okay operators. Later on in the game, you might not use the Dreadnoughts as much, but I would say that for someone who is freshly beginning over here, it is best that you at least have just 1 Dreadnought that is in your account. It doesn't have to be no alter, of course. You can simply choose your favorite one from the selection here. So go ahead to do just that. The next branch to speak of are the Centurions. These are what we call multi-target guards. It's also not a nice naming, so actually the community is used to calling them AoE guards. These are operators who can attack the same number of enemies as their block count. So if they have a block count of 3, they'll be attacking 3 enemies at one go. These operators will be great if you see a lot of enemies coming in and they are all generally weak to physical damage. Hence, I would recommend that you have 1 Centurion built in your account. There are many wonderful operators here. You can choose who you want yours to be. The next branch you must have in your account are the Lords. Just by the naming of them, they already sound like an almighty powerful being, and indeed, these are very strong operators. The other usual way to call them are range guards, which means that these are operators who have a wider range compared to the other guards, allowing them to hit about 3 tiles right in front of them. These operators will deal physical damage when their skills are turned off, and usually, for a lot of them, when their skills are turned on, they either gain a huge increase in their physical damage power, or they change their physical damage into arts damage, allowing them to have a unique hybrid role that can be applied to many situations in the game. With how powerful these range guards are, I don't just recommend you to build one lord, but instead to have 2 within your account as a starting player of the game. Last of the guards branch to introduce is the Arts Fighters. These are the melee operators who will deal arts damage onto all of the incoming enemies. Compared to the casters that I'll mention later on, having a melee operator who deals arts damage and can block one enemy at a time is going to be useful in quite a bit of situations. And hence, that is why I recommend to build at least one arts fighter within your account. The choice of who that is belongs to you. We're going to switch it up by going from the ground operators to the range operators. This time, I'm going to talk about the range physical damage dealers. They are the snipers. Same as the guards, they've got lots of branches, but this time around, you only need to be concerned about 2 of them. Let me take you through the mega branch that is the marksman. Marksman being the first branch that I recommend really helps to set the pace for all the other snipers, because snipers for me is a really amazing class. Marksmen specifically are what we call single target NTA snipers. The single target part meaning to say that they focus fire on one enemy at a time, whereas for the NTA part, they prioritize the aerial enemies instead. So if there's a drone that gets in their range, they'll attack the drone first before they attack all the other ground enemies. These operators are great at taking out small mobs within a stage, and it's usually with their skills that they pack a punch, dealing a high amount of physical damage. There's a lot of praise that I'll sing for this branch, and I think there's a good reason why there's so many operators that you see over here. With such a wide selection, I'm gonna have to recommend you to build 2 of them within your account. In fact, after you play the game even more, you're probably gonna build even say 5 or 6 of them within your account. Anyways, this is a fun branch. Let's go to the next one. If there's a single target operator, there's gonna be multi-target variants. So this next one is gonna be for the artillerymen. These are the operators who will deal AoE physical damage. So if there are many enemies that are packed together in one tile, they're gonna all receive the damage at the same time. Artillerymen do have a high damage, but the game compensates it by giving them a lower attacking speed. These operators are going to be great if you have lots of enemies coming in and they're all weak to physical damage, and hence, having just one of them will be sweet for your account. Go ahead to choose who that will be. Physical damage is only one side of the game, where it hurts enemies that are actually weak to them, but there are those that are resistant towards physical damage, and that would usually mean that they are weaker to the arts damage. So let's now introduce some range arts dealers that are the casters. Also many branches involved here, but we shall only look at 2 of them, beginning first with the core casters. Another name for core casters are single target casters. Usually, core casters attack one at a time, and as mentioned, these are the arts damage dealers. Now, arts damage is not supposed to be understood as like a superior damage in the game. There are some other games that you play where arts damage sounds like the bigger powerhouse, but in the case of Arknights, you don't use it in every situation. You only bring them into a stage if you see that the enemies are weak to them, because there are still going to be enemies where if you use arts damage against them, they're going to feel nothing from it. But if you encounter a stage where you see so many enemies weak to arts damage, if you have so much casters in your account, you're going to be singing your heart out, which is why instead of 1 core caster, I will recommend you to build 2 core casters. There's a lot to choose from here, so decide on the ones that you want in your account. Although, I highly recommend that you build Amiya, the free 5-star that every single player has, because this caster is going to be extremely strong at Elite 2. She can be one of the first Elite 2 that you have within your account. The next branch are the Splash casters, or in other words you can call them the AoE casters. AoE casters are able to deal arts damage onto multiple targets at a time, and there's no limit to the number of targets that they hit as long as they all clump within one singular tile. There's a bit of a strange thing that goes on with AoE casters where they have a high damage power, but one of the biggest troubles that players have with these operators is that they attack too slowly. Even so, for a fresh new player, I would say that having one of these casters will still benefit your account because this is going to be assisting you in those stages where they send large swarm of mobs into the playing field. That is when the splash casters will shine, and you're just going to need one of them built within your account at the start of the game. So feel free to select who you like. The front half of all the classes have been talking about the offensive, how you can hurt the enemies as much as possible. But these enemies are also going to attack you back, so you're going to need some defensive measures. The next class I want to introduce are the medics, which are the ones that will help to heal up your operators so that they can stay in the battlefield. A small number of branches here, and you'll just need 2 of them at the start of the game. The first one to mention is the single target medics. Single target medic, from the name of it, you should be able to get what they do. So in any case, these are the ones that can heal one person at a time, although some of them might have skills that let them heal more. Usually operators that do one thing at a time will have a higher attack power. So in this case, instead of attack power, this means that these medics have a high healing power. It's never always going to be about damaging all the enemies in the stage. Some enemies are ridiculous and you really need some healing going on for your squad. So in this case, instead of one single target medic, I would advise that you build 2 of them. And there's so many to choose from, many brilliant ones as well. So go ahead and pick your poison. If there's single target medics, there's going to be multi-target medics. So this branch will have operators that can heal multiple allies at a time. If you compare the healing power of the multi-target with the single target, you'll find that it's a little bit lower, but still, the roles they play are a little different. You use multi-target medics if you see lots of allies hurt at the same time, but if it's only going to be a few, single target medics will work just fine. As situational as it gets, multi-target medics are great to have in the account, and it's fantastic for the fact that a lot of them are wonderful picks. As a fresh new player, just go and build one and it's going to be enough for your account. Apart from having medics to counter the enemies, defenders are another option where they either have high defense or high resistance so that they can eat up the damage that the enemies are dealing. There's a good handful of branches here, but I only need to introduce 2 of them. Let's first start off with the Guardians. Guardians are a very interesting name to have. They sound like they're the ones that's gonna save your life, and it's true, they will do that for your account because the other common naming for them is healing defenders. Basically, these are operators who can block 3 enemies, they've got good defense, and at the same time, they're able to heal up your allies that's nearby to them. And that's very impressive of its own, because this becomes a very hybrid role that they play. Healing defenders are a huge quality of life in every single account, and these are operators that I really ask you to not miss out on. You shouldn't only have one healing defender, and in fact, 2 Guardians in your account will make your account just so much more pleasant to play with. So go ahead and pick out the 2 that you want to build. While Guardians play a hybrid role, Protectors become a more specific one. They are what we consider as pure defenders, basically the operators that either have a huge amount of HP or a huge amount of defense. These are the ones that you'll want to use to tank out the big damage that some of the toughest enemies deal. This role is quite nice to have early on in the game, although later on you might use them a little less, because more often, players like to kill the enemies before the enemies kill themselves. But still, because we're talking about early game advantage, I would recommend that you have 2 protectors in your account, so go ahead and pick who you want. I've covered about the offensive and then the defensive, and in a lot of games that you play, you'll find that there's always this support role that lies around. Of course, in Arknights, we also got the supporter class, which this one only needs you to look at one branch as a new player of the game. This branch will be the Dazzle Binders. Dazzle Binders are a really complicated name, so it's better that you call them Slowers instead, which by this naming is probably clearer what they do. So Slower's role is of course to slow down the enemies in the battlefield. Early on in the game, it's not something that new players would exactly come to understand, but as they fiddle around with these operators and they realize that these ones can really help to tweak up the battlefields, then that's when you'll start to appreciate what they can provide in the game. In fact, even though their damage powers may not be as high as the casters for example, in terms of the utility that they provide, it is exceptional, which is why I don't recommend just one Dazzle Binder, but 2 instead within your account. So go and pick out those that will become your favorites. The final class to mention are the Specialists. These operators are unique in the way that they attack. They're kind of like supporters, but they're also attackers at the same time. In any case, this versatility is sweet, and there are 3 branches that are great for a newbie in the game. I'll first mention the Executors. Executors are one of my favorite branches in the game. These operators are what we call fast redeploys, meaning to say that when you place them down in the map, you let them do some damage, and then you retreat them. It's going to take a short amount of time for you to bring them back into the stage and do all of their magic all over again. Usually for a lot of operators, it takes about 60 to 70 seconds to redeploy the operators after you have retreated them. But for fast redeploys, it can go to as low as 15 seconds to about a usual 20 seconds. And that sort of versatility can really help in the game. They may not be operators that are intuitive to learn at the start, but eventually after a few playthroughs, you'll grow to love what they do just as much as I do. With this great amount of power that fast redeploys have, I will have to say that you shouldn't build 1 but 2 fast redeploys in your account. Now, the first executor that you should build, actually not even should build, but you must build, is going to be a Gravel. Gravel is extremely strong for every single squad, whether you're a new player or a old-time 2-year-old player. So make that your first fast redeploy, and then choose whichever second one that you like. Hookmasters are the next branch to talk about. The easier naming for them are pullers. The most often used case for pullers is when you see that there's a stage with holes that are available. If there's a hole, you can pull the enemies into them so you don't even have to deal any damage. Just send them into the hole and they're killed immediately. Usually this will work the best if there's a very tough enemy with a high attack but they have a low weight that allows pullers to pull them in the first place. There won't be a lot of maps in the game that allows for the use of pullers, but in those where they are made to make such pullers shine, you'll be grateful to have 1 puller in your account. So choose your favorite hookmaster that you want to play with. The final branch that wraps this all up has got to have the weirdest name to talk about, which are the push strokers. Instead of going by this odd naming, please call them pushers instead. Just like the pullers, pushers also work the best if you see that there are holes within a stage. While that is one of the functions, another popular function for pushers is to let them push the enemies away within one lane so that you can kind of do an attack cancelling motion. In every stage that you enter, you're gonna have to see how the stage is designed. Sometimes you're gonna need a puller to get the enemies into a hole, other times you'll want a pusher. So that is why it's gonna be convenient if you have 1 pusher built in your account. With that, I've covered all the 19 foundational branches for your account. It totals up to 27 operators to build, and you're free to choose whoever that you want. Go ahead and screenshot this screen if you want to use it for yourself. So there you have it. That's the template that you guys can use for your account. Now there's one last thing I want to mention before I close up this video. What if you want to build some operators that are not featured in this template? So for example, maybe say you want to build a Chen Outer. So Chen Outer has the spread shooter branch, but she's not a branch that I have within this video. Or maybe you want to build like a Rosmontes who's a flinger. Or you have some other classes or branches that you want to build, I didn't mention them. Now, you do not have to hard follow this guide at all. As long as you understand what these operators do and how they are able to provide your own gameplay, please feel free to build them for all you want. There are even other stronger units or even more fun units, maybe even say prettier units that you are going to like. These units that I don't feature are not what I consider as foundational unit. The operators that are considered to be good to have, maybe say in the middle of the gameplay or towards your late game experience. But there's still absolutely no problem with building them early on. As long as you got the foundation already there by the time you reach about level 70 of a player account, you're gonna clear every single content in the game with no problem at all because you've got some of the best starting units that you want. And if you haven't noticed about these branches, if let's say you are say a loyal follower of Killstain guides, you always watch his stage guides and then you realize you are lacking some operators. If you followed this template, you built the first 25 operators that I told you to build, you've handpicked all that you need, you're actually able to hard follow all of Killstain guides for all that you want because every single branch that he uses in his videos is already featured in here as well. So this template that I give is basically just a serving guidance, especially to get those of you who are super lost as to how you're supposed to build in your account. Now, what if you have finished building all these foundational operators? You've fulfilled all the 25 that I told you to handpick, and then what's the next step? When you have built these 25 operators, you don't need to look for guides anymore. And I really mean what I say. What I mean by that is that you don't need to look for guides as to who you should build or why you should build and all that kind of thing. You see an operator that you're interested by, just go and build them. It doesn't even matter that they're strong or let's say you really like the operators. You can freely build all that you want. Any more operators you build after this is basically going to add on to the fun that you have in Arknights. There's no need to say, oh, my account is like this now, who's the next person to build? Just build the thing that catches your eye the most because you literally beat the game. At this point, it's basically trying to twist the game to your own enjoyment. Explore all the other branches I didn't mention, see how they can synergize with your account, or even within the same branches that I've talked about, build more operators in each one, build more of the lords, build more of the marksmen, see what magic they do for your account. So that's all that I have to mention. One final thing, if you notice in this video, I've been talking about who you can build in your account, but I haven't really covered the building process of the operators. I didn't actually mention to you guys what level you're supposed to put the characters at, what skill ranks you're supposed to set them to. There isn't really a guideline yet as to are you supposed to balance the levels of everyone or are you supposed to set someone even higher than the rest. So because this video has gone very long, I think it's hit about 30 minutes, it's already quite a jacked episode. I think I gave lots of good information. In the next episode of Arkpedia, that one is called the Building Rulebook, where I'll take you guys through all of the building guidelines, bring you guys through each stage of your account, whether you're player level 30, 40, 50 or all the way to 70, 80. What should your operators be looking like at each juncture? So I'm pretty sure those are advice that some people are looking out for as well, but we'll save that for the next episode. So I hope you guys are excited for this entire Arkpedia series. I would say that this video probably have the toughest of edits ever throughout my Arknights YouTube history. Huge thanks to Pepp for editing this video for me. He's one of the main editors on my channel and he's done a great job to take you guys through all those operators just now. So anyways, that's that for today's video. I shall see you guys in the next one. Alright, make sure you guys are there. I shall see you guys soon. Bye bye.